Okay, so should we start? Right, so everyone ready to start, yeah? So silence. Thank you. Okay, so you know that last week we finished looking at time series models. We saw the simplest form of time series. And I told you, well, think about how we can use these models, how could we advance these models to forecast in terms of things like seasonal changes, okay, or nonlinear growth. Right, so we are gonna start with this week. We are gonna finish forecasting time series, and that will be the first hour. During the second hour, you received an email yesterday with a little bit of an insight of what we are gonna do. But we are gonna look at the panel data, and we are gonna look at that from a practical point of view. In fact, we are gonna analyze policy on the using some hospital data. And with some, well, explaining a little bit ahead the guidelines, you will try to do that, and then we will build up from what you have done for that, okay? So the second hour will be a bit different. It will not be me lecturing, and so the parts in which I'm not lecturing, obviously, I will not be talking in the recording, okay? Right, so let's then start with the time series. So if you remember last week, we did have this brewing company data set, and we are actually going to use 3 data sets today in the case of time series models. And, but following up from last week's, we said, well, the simplest form that, a quick reminder, what is time series? Time series, if you remember, is we observe a variable over a period of time, yeah? So we said, well, the simplest way of forecasting that we could think in a time series model is like, what about if we forecast the sales in the future period as the ones that we had in the current or in the past period, right? So for example, we had sales for January, February, March 2014, and I told you, could you forecast beer sales for April 2014? And we said, well, the simplest way that we could think is like we use the sales in March 2014 to forecast the sales in the following month, which is April 2014, yeah? But what was wrong with that? Or maybe you think it's perfectly right, then we don't continue, yeah? Okay, so one thing is that we assume it's always increasing. We assume it's exactly the same that in the last period, and we don't account for the seasonal variations that may have happened in specific months, yeah? So we said, okay, let's advance a little bit this model, and then let's try to predict the sales in April 2014 as the sales in the past month plus the variation that we had between the 2 previous months. Yes, so we are counting a little bit about variation here. And then I told you, well, can you predict all of this? Yeah? And so if you did it, which you could have used Excel for that, in fact, let's do it together if you want. Right, so this is exactly the same that you had in the slides. So if we use the equation that we just said, then the sales in April 2014, let me do it bigger just in case, 2014 would be equal to the sales in March 2014, yeah, plus the variation between the 2 previous months. So variation between March 2014 and February 2014. And then you press OK, expand the equation, and then you have a prediction or a rough prediction using that equation for all these months. Right? That's what I asked you to do at home. So if you did the same than me, hopefully you got these numbers. You also have the table in the slides. Right, so here, something that we could do now is to actually check whether this has given us a good prediction. And how can we check this? So what we are going to do, so I'm following the slides, by the way. What we are going to do is to see the variation of sales per month. Yes, so I'm following just the slides, but I'm doing it step by step. So how can we do that? So we can create a graph, right, in which we have the beer sales per month, in which we are going to see the variations for 2012, 2013, and then 2014 with our prediction, and see whether that is a good prediction. Okay, so if you create that graph, which you could go creating a huge graph here, at the same time than me. So if you select the data, you can represent here 2012. Then we can represent 2013. And we select the VR sales for 2013. And now what we are going to do is to represent 2014. We've done these graphs before, but if you want me to go slower or do it again, then let me know. And then in the horizontal axis, it will be maybe instead of from 1 to 12, you could actually have January, February, you know, the names if you want. I mean, it's not a necessity because you know January is the first month and 12, but you could actually select this. And you see it changes. Now let me just add the axis title. So month. And here we have sales. And something else that we could add is the legend, yeah? So we know exactly what we are talking about. So this is exactly the same graph that you have in the slides. Yeah, and this is how it was created. So see that in 2012 and in 2013, very clearly, you have a decrease, or well, it's more clear in 2012 and in 2013, but you can have a decrease on sales in February and March, and in summer, you have an increase on sales. Right? This is what we described last week as seasonal effects. Now, using that formula that we thought about, using that estimation equation that we thought about for 2014, we do actually, so there is an increasing tendency on the VRs of sales, and we actually capture that increasing tendency. But what are we not capturing here? We are not capturing the seasonal effects. We will not capture other things either, like, for example, promotional expenditure. Okay, if you promote the good and that may have an effect in sales. You don't capture any of these things. So then this will not be a good method. Yes, it's not giving us a good prediction for 2014. So see, for example, if we go for August, yes, there is an increase in VR sales, but here there is a peak. And then although there is an increasing tendency from August to September, in both cases it decreases. It increases with respect to, well, in this case with respect to July, in this case with respect to June, right? But so there is that increasing tendency, but we are not accounting for that seasonal effects with our prediction of 2014. Okay, so that's what we are going to do today, is to see, well, how can we actually change that? How can we actually model this to account for these seasonal effects? So this is the same graph, just in bigger, okay. And that's how we created it. Right, so what we've been seeing all the time is that this linear model. So what we are doing, actually, this prediction that we did in 2014, is to assume this linearity of growth. Now, what we want is to account for that seasonal effects. But what about if, for example, it is not linear, right? What about if we have a constant rate of growth, like we have in the case of here? Yeah, we could also have a negative rate of growth. Like, for example, happens with things like we'll see with the GDP, you will have an increasing constant rate of growth. But it could happen that you have a negative rate of growth. Yeah? So how do we model that thing? So your model will have to represent these things, or you will have to convert your model to be able to estimate it using OLS, which that's also a possibility. Okay, so that's going to depend on the series that you have. So if we look, for example, at employment rates, and you have here, so this is data for the labor force in the UK, which you have available in your in Blackboard. Yeah. So this is actual real data for the rate of growth for the level of employment in the UK for women and men. So we could actually see what is the tendency graphically. So you could try to estimate these things first linearly, right, to see which model will be more appropriate. So in this case, what we are going to do is to represent the men's rate of employment and women's rate of employment, and then make a prediction. Okay? See if we can actually get an equation which could predict, right, the rate of employment for the for future years. Okay, so let's try to do that. So basically, I'm replicating this graph here. Right, so if you insert a graph, you could do it at the same time than me, or just look. And again, you select the data. If you add a series, and here we could call it the men's rate of employment. Men's employment rate. Let's call it exactly the same in the lectures. Right, and then you go, here you have employment and inactivity. We're actually interested in employment, so you just go for that one. You go to the rate, select it, and then now we're going to add the woman's employment rate. And here you will have to go to the woman's one, which is here. And in the horizontal axis, it's probably more informative if instead of just putting 1, 2, 3, 4, which is how it is counting the time period, we actually put the years, yeah? So you select the years, and you click OK. And now something that we could do is titles and the lay-ins. So here we are going to see, say year, sorry. Yeah, I'll make it bigger now, 1 second. And employment rate. Yeah? And then several things. Now what I'm interested to do is the linear prediction. Yeah, it's a prediction. See if a linear trend fits my model. Yeah? So how can you add that in the graph? So we could actually select the graph, go to this plus, and say trend line. Add it first for the woman and then for the man at trend line. Okay. Okay, or the other way around. And you see it adds directly in the legend. Just in case you are wondering why in the slides it is a bit more reduced, the graph, you can edit this, okay? If you go to format axis, you can actually say or instead of in 0, starts in, I think it's 40 in the slides, starts in 40, and it will start from the values 40 so you can see it closer. You could also edit this and then say that you want them for specific intervals and you want them every 10. Okay? And then you have already the graph that you have in the slides. Okay, so what happens here? What happens here? So first of all, you can observe that there is, so the level of employment rate increased, okay, progressively for women, and actually there is a decreasing tendency in the men's employment rate since 1971 until 2021. Doesn't arrive to 2021, okay, so the catch-up part will be more, it looks like it's catching up more around 2020. And actually, here you could argue that you could use a linear model. But then you will have to argue that you will need to account for these variations. So you will actually have to research why these variations are happening, because for both of them are decreasing or increasing at similar periods of time, this could be due to policies apply. Okay? I don't know, maybe, so there was a policy around here, I think in this peak here in which the income tax for the couples was separated instead of using the combined income tax, and we know that increased the level of employment for women. Okay, so you will have to see what was happening in the environment, okay, and account for those policies. And for this we could use different things that we are going to see today. One of them will be the dummy variables that you've already seen, although we will see again today to account for seasonal variations. Okay? But you could actually find other trends, like if, for example, you look at GDP, in which they follow more a constant rate of growth instead of a more clear linear upward or downward tendency to model them. So if you, for example, go all of these data that you have available in Blackboard, okay, I'm not making up anything. If you, for example, go to data about GDP, and you look at this, does anyone know why at the top of the data set says base year equal 100? So it will be in pounds of, I don't remember here, but it will be in pounds of 1960. Does anyone know what we do that? If you do finance, where we use a base year? Feel free to talk. To account for inflation, right? Because a pound today is not the same as a pound in 1960. So you have to put it in the same value of one specific year. So whatever is the base year, the whole idea. Otherwise, you will not have. You will not be showing real results. Okay, so here, for example, we clearly don't have a linear tendency. We clearly have increasing rate of growth, and then see that also even within this rate of growth. And let me just come back 1 second to the slides, where you have exactly the same graph. Yeah. We can observe some seasonal variations also. Yeah, it's not constant, right? So we have some peaks, like for example, there is obviously something going on here, yeah? What is going on? You need to research about it, right? So it's not, the data is not going to tell you that. Okay, something else is going to tell you that, what was happening. You have something also here, which you should account for, yeah? Here we could consider that is also a very small increase, right? That's a little bit also up to your intuition. Okay, so something then that we could do, if we have a linear model that, for example, or you could think you could fit a linear model that, for example, in the case of the level of employment, that you have for the UK for men and women, then actually you could try to forecast future observations. So this will be the forecast of future observations as, again, the constant plus the coefficient and a time period variable, okay? So assume that this is a continuous time period variable. So if you have from 1971 to 2021, then you could say 1 is 1971, 2 is 1972, 3 is 1973, up until the end, you know, up to like, I'm very bad at mental calculation, I don't know, 32, okay, or 31, right? So it could be a continuous, in fact, for now, let's consider it just a continuous time period variable. So that's T there, okay, some type of accountability for that time period variable. And you could have that forecast. However, this is going to be too simple, but not just too simple, too inflexible for other types of models, like, for example, this one, in which you clearly don't have a linear tendency. Okay? Right, so what can we do in this case then? Is there any way we could convert this to linearity? So we could actually fit a linear model? Because, I mean, ideally we fit a linear model because it's much easier to run. Is there any way that you think we could, something that we could do with this data? Sorry? Log? Yeah? Yes, we could take logs. Very good. Yeah? So we try to take logs then, if everyone agrees? So remember that in this case we take natural logs, yeah? So equal ln, you've seen this also in the lectures, sorry, in the lectures and in the seminars. Okay, and then you just expand the equation, and then now let's do something. Let's actually represent the natural log and see whether it is more linear, okay? Okay, so if I insert again a graph, if then you go, where is it? Okay. I put it here. Okay. And in here, let's do the years like in the other one. I mean, you can already see I'm just doing the years for comparison, yeah? We just have one series. So, can you just put it next to each other? No, it's not going to like it. Okay, so here on the left, on your right, we have the GDP, okay, without logs, and on your left you have the logs one. Looks a bit more linear, yeah? So actually, taking a log, like your colleague said, it's a first step, yeah, towards linearity, right? And maybe then, you see in the tutorial, you did this log, okay? Maybe then you take logs and we do have a linear model. So basically, what we are doing here okay, so what we are going to do here in terms of equations is, so you are going to take the prediction, yeah, and this prediction which initially, okay, so this prediction of the GDP for GST, which was initially described as, see that here what you don't have is no linearity, right? It's a constant rate of growth. So in the constant rate of growth, then you are going to have being this the initial value of the time series. So this is the initial value of the time series, which then will convert to your constant, yeah? This is the rate of growth. And what is going to be t? Is the unit of time that we are using. Yes, this is how you represent this constant rate of growth in an equation. Yeah? So this is what we have. And we are saying, well, here we cannot fit an OLS. Yeah, because there is no linearity. You can see this is no constant plus coefficient times t. So what we are doing, what actually we've done, or you've done, taking me take logs, is to take logs here. So you've done the log of this prediction, and then you know that if they are multiplying, will be the log of the first term plus the log of the second one. So this, what is this then in your linear model? This is going to be your constant, yeah, your alpha. Plus, and then the power goes down, so you will have t log of 1 plus g, yeah? And this is, what is this? It's your beta t, okay? So now, what you've done is to convert your model to linear. That's what we've done in the Excel, yeah? So this is actually just the type of applied theory behind, okay? Not going to ask you, sorry, I left my pen there, so I'm not going to ask you to do this in an exam, don't worry, this is your next question, okay? But I want you to understand what's going on. Okay, right, so now that we've represented this, so if you come back to the slide, so this has changed a little bit more to linearity. However, there is going to be other methods that we can use, right, to do better predictions and still account for this growth. And for this, we are actually going to come back now to the... It's always risky to go coming back to things in this class. Okay, so to the brewing data set that we had last week, yeah? And we are going to do everything that we have learned so far. We are going to try to do it here plus more, right? So we've already seen that this linear prediction that we've done, we said, well, this doesn't work. Okay, so how can we actually account for more things, like, for example, seasonal variation, right? So one thing that we said is to just have, so this initial model, accounting for the period of time. So we could actually create a time period variable, let me show it in smaller, which is this one here, and we say, okay, let's create a continuous time variable in which it will be 1 if it is January 2012, 2 if it is February 2012, until 27 for March 2014. Why I don't continue? Because the whole idea is that my model will predict from March 2014, okay? The whole idea is that that initial prediction that I've done was not good enough. I drop it, and now I want my model to do the prediction for me, yeah? We're going to learn two methods here. One is the one that you have in the slides. Both of them, you have them in the slides. Which is the ratio to trend method, okay? And the other one is where we are going to choose dummy variables. Right, and we are going to do this directly in Excel. So again, you have absolutely everything in the slides, okay? So there is nothing extra that I'm including. I'm just showing you how we did it. Okay, so the ratio to trend method is actually a way of predicting future sales using actual sales that we have and considering a time period which is like a continuous variable like this one. Okay, so we are not considering here dummy variables, we are considering our time variable as a continuous time variable, like that would be a continuous one. Yeah? Right, so step one, the first step, is to calculate the linear trend, that linear trend that we've been doing all the time in the graphs. Yeah? So the first thing that we have to do is to represent graphically sales over the period of time. Yeah? And I've done already this 3 times during the lecture today, so I'm pretty sure you can do it yourself. So if you represent sales and time period, this is what you have. Yeah? So I'll leave it for you to try it, although you have it in the slides, but you need to try it. No, now, like at home. Now you just follow this. Okay, and then we add the trend line. And remember that the trend line, you can use it, here I said it, but you can select the graph, you select this plus, you select the trend line, and here can you see that there is an equation? Remember that you can do this selecting the trend line, right-hand click in the trend line, format trend line, and then at the bottom you have display equation on chart. However, this equation is the same than what? It's the same that running the regression, right, with one coefficient. So in this case, the only thing that you could do is to run this regression in which sales is your dependent variable and time period is your independent variable, is your explanatory variable. Yeah? So, if you have this, then you will have sales. So this is sales equals the constant plus the coefficient times the time period variable, which is this one. Yeah? That's my time period. So that's my dependent variable. And that's the regression that you have. And see that it's actually exactly the same results than the trend line that this gives me. Yeah, so you have the constant, which is 2,881, and you have the coefficient, which is 8.5556, so 56 rounding up. Yeah? It's exactly the same. So that's the first thing that we have to do for the ratio to trend method. Okay, so the second step is going to be to forecast the sales. So we are going to do it for April, okay, 2014, which is our next month that we can predict, is to forecast the sales for 2014. And so if we do that, so we have this equation. So the sales for April 2014, which time period will be? That will be time period 28th, April 2014, yeah? So the forecast for the time period 28th, yeah, will be equal to what? So come back here. Let's come back to the graph, actually. To the constant, which is this, which is 2881.8, plus the coefficient, which is 8 point, and let's say 8.56 just to round up, but you can do that one just because it's the one that gives us in the OLS, times what? Times the time period. And which time period are we forecasting for? 28. Yeah? Times 28. And so if you do this, it'll give you a number which is that. Which is, don't worry about the other ones, yeah, 3,121.48. So you have that number there, the forecasted number, okay? You could do it for all the time periods that you want. This is not going to be the actual sales that we are going to forecast so far, okay? This is not the actual sales that you will give to your CEO. This is just what your linear regression has forecasted. Now what we are going to try to do is to account for variability. And so for this, we calculate the coefficients for the previous months, yeah, as, so here, for example, we have for February 2014, March 2014, actually for all of them, yeah, we have data. So what you will have to do is, using this equation, calculate the prediction for all of them, right? In this case, I'm just using 2 to do a simplified thing. So remember that, what was this? When we were looking at the residuals, what is actually telling me the residuals is the variation, the variability that there is between your prediction and the actual observed number. So here you have actual observed numbers. So you want to see how good is your linear prediction. So to know that, right, you want to calculate, well, using the linear equation that you have estimated, yeah? So what would have been the prediction for January 2012 or February 2012, okay? Okay, and then imagine that I do it for just February 2014 and March 2014 to simplify, yeah? So you have the actual sales, the observed value, and then the forecast that has been calculated, can you see the formula here, with the formula that you are using for your predictions, yeah? With that OLS model that you are running. Right, from there you can actually calculate the coefficient which is known in the ratio to trend. And then this coefficient is going to be the actual sales over the forecast, yeah? For the values that you can observe. Okay, let me eliminate this. Right, so you have the coefficients for February 2014, March 2014, you can calculate for all of them, right, which is just the relationship between your actual sales and forecast. So we can calculate the coefficient for April 2014 as the average of the coefficients above. In this case, just because I'm doing a simplified example, I'm just using 2 months. Ideally, you should use everything that you have in your data set, okay? And now, the actual sales that you are going to predict that they are going to happen, that you are actually going to tell to your CEO, is going to be, so what are you doing with that coefficient, right? You are just accounting, in a way, for the variability between your forecast and your actual sales, okay, and the observed values. So the actual sales that you are going to say, that you predict are going to happen, are going to be the forecast from your linear model times this average coefficient. And using the ratio to trend method, that's actually your prediction for sales for beer sales in April 2014. Yeah? Everyone okay with this method of prediction? Okay, so remember, you do the forecast using the linear equation that you predicted, then you calculate the coefficients for the observed data as the actual sales over the forecast, and then for those months that you want to predict, it will be the average coefficients of the previous months, yeah? And then the actual sales would be the forecast times the coefficient. Right, another way that we can account for seasonal variations in this data set. It's okay, we have 1 hour and 20 minutes. Another way, anyone, that you can think, I give you this data set, okay? And I'll tell you, right, run a linear model with this. Which parables do you think you will include to account for seasonal variations? apart from, forget about the continuous time variable. What other things can account for time variations? Yeah, month dummy variables, for example. Yeah, very good. Sorry? Quarters also, year dummy variables, okay, in this case. So you could think about basically dummy variables, yeah, and how you include dummy variables in this model to account for seasonal variation. So for example, let's go for month once, and then there are different things that you could do, yeah? Like you could include years, you could include months, you could divide it in quarters. That's also going to depend on how you see in the graph the variations happening. Okay, so you could then create, as I did here, month dummy variables. We've created dummy variables before in the lecture and in the tutorials, okay? But remember that you would say if B, column B in this case equals February, then give the value 1, otherwise 0. And I've created variables from February to December. Why I'm not creating a variable for January? Dummy trap, very good. Because remember that if I include the 12 dummy variables, I will have a problem of multicollinearity, okay? So you exclude one of them to avoid that problem, but then the way that you interpret that results will be related to that month that you are excluding. In this case, I've decided to exclude January. You could decide to exclude whatever you want, or the model will do it for you. Okay, so, and then if you run, here I included also time period, okay, just to have more seasonal variability, but you don't have to include it. You could also add year dummy variables. You could add quarters, like the other colleague said. Okay, you could include several things. And you include, and now, in reality, can you see that the variations now, you will have them per month. So now what you are going to have is like your prediction from April 2014, right? It's going to be the constant plus coefficients, and depending on whether it is February, March, April, May, okay, it will vary that prediction. The dummies will be 1 or 0. You can also see that some of them are statistically significant, some of them are statistically insignificant. So for example, in August, and we will talk now about the coefficient, you can see that it's statistically significant, and actually sales increased by all these units compared to January, okay, which is the dummy variable that we excluded, and compared to not being in August. Now, here the coefficient is quite large. Remember that another reason to use logs, right, could be to have an approximation on percentage variation also, because here the interpretation will be in quantity, in units, yeah? Okay. We're going to have 10 minutes break now, and then we will look at panel data, and actually you will be looking at panel data, okay? But 10 minutes break, and I will be here in the landing just in case someone has questions, which you could ask anyway, but just in case, yeah? I mean, I'll send you an email. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't upload it. Don't worry, I will upload it. Yeah. Sorry. For the GDP, for example, because sometimes the log makes it more linear. So what you are doing is to convert the data to something that is more smoother. When you think so.
And also,
So I would say there are two cases. One, when it's you can see the graph is non-linear, okay, and you want to convert it. And another one when you can see that the variable is too large. So, no, for example, this is the GDP. No, sorry, I don't have. I know there is not a GDP. Sorry, I have to upload it. But come here 1 second. So if we go to the GDP, here you can see that there are very large numbers. So it's also a good thing sometimes to consider logs because that way your coefficient converts more into a percentage change, if that makes sense.
and also, when we graph the data, when we should use the this one, and when we should use the scatter.
So it depends on what you want to do. So if you want to see the dispersion of the data, of the observed data, then it's the scatter. If you want to see the tendency, then it's the linear.
But can you pardon for the scatter? Can you say it again for the scatter?
When you want to see the dispersion of the data, so how dispersed is the observed data from the linear tendency.
And the last one is, I think we got the different data for the company because we don't have, like, I've seen the time period 26 or something, but we only got up to 24. So
Because I didn't add the okay,
Yeah,
let me check.
and-
Let me check the 24. It should be last week's data set anyway, but I will. Yeah.
I'm just curious about the small difference for like the intercept is caused by we got the different time periods. Like you got-
Well, yes, because I'm including more variables for sure.
And for the 8.56 for the beta, it should be the coefficient for time, like this one, this data, right? This.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
This question about the coefficient for the outcomes. I can see that this coefficient is calculated
Actual.
actual divided by
Exactly.
that one. And I do know how to calculate the forecast sales for the April quarters, but I don't know how you can
It's
see
the average
the
between
average
these
of
two.
between
Yeah.
these two. So
And then how you calculate this is this times this.
this times this
Exactly.
actually. But the question is mainly about how do you arrive at the average? If I have to use the whole data set to calculate the average, or I can use the most close one, like the February or March.
Up to you. That will be depending on
it's
what's your
really-
argument.
Okay.
So you could say, listen, I'm going to use all of them because I think it's more predictable.
Yeah.
Or you think I'm just going to choose 2014 because it's 2014 is a
It's
different
more
year
related.
and maybe it's related.
Yeah, okay.
So that's when your economic intuition comes into place. Okay.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah,
sell
I
me your
will-
idea and I buy it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And no problem about the group, the project.
You have? Oh no.
Yeah. As you can see, we've sent multiple emails to our group mate. Right now, I'm only getting in touch with
Okay, you cannot get in touch with her, yeah?
Yeah, I can get in touch with her, and we already set up a WhatsApp group, and in this group, there's only...
Okay, two things that could happen here. One is like
Yeah.
she's unresponsive, another one is like she may have dropped the course. So this is how we're going to proceed. I'm going to email this person, okay, myself.
No, I can get contact with Victoria.
Ah, you can?
Yeah, I can.
So
And
who
she is in the group. The only problem is I don't know who this person is.
Ah, that's the person that you can, okay. So I will not email for Victoria here.
I can get in touch with 4 of them, but I have trouble finding the rest of my group. I absolutely have no idea who they are. Because you see, the email, the names are definitely from China, right? But they always put their English
Ask
name
them.
on. Yeah, I can't tell who's who.
Sorry, I can't tell either.
Yeah,
but ask them. Can you say in the,
Yeah.
in the WhatsApp group, can you introduce yourself, guys?
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah,
I can ask them during the break and try to see their response. And maybe after this lecture, I can determine who cannot reach. And
yeah, perfect. If there is anyone that you cannot reach, we will try to do something. Yeah.
Great, cheers.
So for this data here, where are you drawing this from? I think I'm doing it wrong, but I can't get the same line equation. Am I supposed to regress it first? I just put the note down.
But you mean like in the slides?
Yeah.
But I think...
I've got the same data set, but just not the same. So where it says YT equals 2881, I don't have that formula. Am I doing something wrong?
Wait 1 second. Have you just considered the sales of 2012?
No, I'm copying this to the
Also, you are doing the round with this one?
yeah, basically. I didn't try to do it on the other one.
Okay, here the reason is because it just was 2014.
Okay.
We don't have the 2014, and so you have to add it. But so what I would do is that to re-upload the data set with the 2014. I mean, it's just a matter of copy and paste, but I will do it. Okay. So that's the reason.
So I'm supposed to put 2014 below.
Exactly.
And then do that.
Until March, because that's definitely the reason I have more. But I will re-upload the data set.
Okay, let me have a look. Thank you so much.
Yes, no worries. Okay, so let's start again. Right, so remember then that we've seen several examples with cross-sectional data when we have a variable when we have several variables that we can observe in one period of time. Like see, for example, the Sherwin-Williams data set that we saw about paint sales, the data set that we saw about housing sales. We've just looked at time series, and now what we are going to look is an example of what happens when you have both of these things together. And actually what we are going to look at is at policy implication. And I'm actually going to jump here to something related to the module and also the workshop that has happened this week. So I want you to have something really clear about this module. It's not about you doing A, B, C, okay? So please don't go to your report and say, oh, she's telling me to do this graph, this, and this. That will give you a pass, okay? Fine. But it's about what else do you do? It's about that your economic intuition, that creativity that you have, okay? Or how would you actually answer the question? And it doesn't have that you have for the report or the workshop, and it doesn't have to be exactly the guidelines or like do this graph, do this thing, okay? No, it's about how you deal with data sets, okay? Remember for the report you have between 20 and 30 points that ask for creativity, okay? So I know you have modules in econometrics, in quantitative methods, and in mathematics, okay? Well, they told you to do that. It's not about that, this module. So the idea of this out of the lecture and the idea of the workshop goes a little bit towards that, okay? To you showing me, well, what can you do, okay? This is going to happen when you go to the job market. They are going to tell you, hey, guys, look, I have this data for consumer satisfaction, okay? I want to see, like, why is decreasing, and they are not going to tell you, can you do a scatter plot of, no, that will be you thinking about it, and you have a presentation in 2 days. What are you going to show, okay? So that's a little bit the idea of the module. Anyway, okay, so... Oh, this is fancy. Okay, so something that we are going to look at here is, for example, policy implication. And the method that we are going to see is called difference in difference, but don't worry about the name. And so this is, for example, well, we are going to a policy in education, okay, or a new tax. And you want to see about what is the influence of this tax, or what is the influence in the education system of a new policy, or what happened in COVID-19, on what about if we implement an after-school program doesn't have any positive results on average marks, or on what potential subjects the students take for future years, and so on, okay? And now I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story of how this idea of this method happened. And the whole idea is that you use this story to think about the exercise that you're going to have to do this. But you have an academic paper available in Blackboard, which is by Carr et al. In 2015. And then Carr et al. In 2015, God knows what happens with this. Okay, so, you know what we're going to do? Right, let me try again. Okay, yes. Okay, so, okay, so, in 2015, and it's about the implementation of minimum wage in Pennsylvania. Yeah, right, so, and this is the first time that this methodology is used. So basically, what was happening is also in New Jersey. It's like suddenly, so I know here the concept of minimum wage is very well implemented in the UK, okay, but it's not that well implemented in other areas of the world. In fact, there are some parts where they don't have a minimum wage, okay? So, in New Jersey, they were from a specific month and year, they were implementing a new measure, which it was a minimum wage. And then these authors, so this is a little bit of summary of the paper, decided to see whether the implementation of the minimum wage had an effect on the level of employment, okay? And particularly, they wanted to see whether it had an effect on the level of employment of the fast food sector. Why? Because they wanted to look at an industry in which wages are relatively, in average, lower, okay, than in other sectors, and this is where it may have the biggest level of the biggest effect. Okay. So for this, they said, okay, we are going to take another state, and they will do research on this, okay, I don't think they had it on top of their mind, which is comparable and which it doesn't have implemented a minimum wage. And what we are going to do is to compare both states and to see whether in one of them there is a sudden increase on the minimum wage. So basically, in the terms of the slides, see that what was happening, that you have this in the slides, is that what is happening here, or in this case it will be an increase in the level of employment, but doesn't, or a decrease, okay? This is the literature argues different things. It's like maybe something is happening, there is suddenly a policy applied, and we have a huge effect, which it could be up or down depending on what the effect on the level of employment is, due to that policy implemented. So what they want to do is to look at the causal effect of this policy here. Okay, so they took the case of Pennsylvania, in which there is no minimum wage, okay? And the law was not modified in Pennsylvania, okay? No modification. It was for them a similar state. There will be other things to control for pre-existing differences between states anyway. And then they say, let's look at whether the implementation of the minimum wage in New Jersey did actually have an effect on the level of employment. And for this, they use the difference in difference methodology. Okay, so it's a way of dealing, for example, with panel data, okay, in which see that here, what they are going to have data is the level of employment, okay, for both states, for the fast food sector, across time. So we have different variables that we observe across time. We have panel data. And then there will be other variables that account for the pre-existing differences between the two states. For example, GDP, unemployment, okay, anything that could count for pre-existing economic differences. Okay, so this method has, first of all, we are going to have a variable which is called policy. And this policy is when the minimum wage is implemented, yeah? So imagine that we have data from 2016 to 2021, monthly data, and then the minimum wage is implemented in January 2018. So it will be 1, since the minimum wage is implemented, so 1 from, if it is implemented in January 2018, then January 2018, 0 otherwise. Yeah, that accounts for, what is that? It's like a time variable, yeah? That accounts for time. So 1, since the policy is implemented, 0 otherwise. By the way, January 2018, I made up, okay? So it's just a reflection of when it is implemented. And then treated variable is how it is called, the difference in difference. And what is going to be our treatment state is where the policy is applied, is where we actually want to look at whether that policy had a causal effect on the level of employment. In this case, it's going to be New Jersey. Okay, so our treatment in this case is going to be New Jersey. So we are actually also telling the data set, listen, New Jersey had this policy applied. So 1, if it is New Jersey, 0 otherwise. However, this is just telling me, well, we know that we have New Jersey, we know that a minimum wage is implemented from a specific period of time, but how can we compare this with Pennsylvania, which in principle nothing is implemented, okay? We are just having it as a control, okay? So Pennsylvania is our control variable. So how can we account for this double causal effect variation? And this is where difference in difference variable enters, which it will be the treated times the policy. So see that here is going to be 1 if the state is New Jersey and the minimum wage has been already implemented, and 0 otherwise. So we are having a model in which the level of employment you don't have to understand perfectly now, because the whole idea is that you understand while you work with hospital data, okay, what we are doing. So it's going to be the constant plus recognizing the data set for having New Jersey plus the policy plus this difference in difference variable, which is our, so this is going to be for state and period of time, which is our coefficient of interest, okay? So if this coefficient is statistically significant and positive, then it will be telling me that the actual minimum wage applied in New Jersey had a positive effect in the level of employment, okay? That specific policy. And we are actually trying to account here for the causal effect. If it is negative, then it will be the opposite. If it is not statistically significant, then there will not be any statistically significant effect at all. Okay? Now, this is how this idea started with this article, okay? But the whole idea, I'll leave this up, is that you have a data set in Blackboard which is called hospital admissions data, which is this. So you can download it actually. Now in here you have two hospitals. You have the satisfaction rate, or from 0 to 5, I think, how satisfied a patient who attended that hospital in a specific period of time was, okay? And in one of the hospitals, there was a new admissions procedure implemented, okay? Now, did you know that the NHS is the biggest employer for economists, for economics students in the UK? There you go. So this is really common, right? So they apply this admissions procedure, and they will come to you and they ask you, listen, I have data for these two hospitals. We've applied a new admissions procedure, okay? We want to see whether this has a positive effect on the level of satisfaction of consumers. Could you actually tell us if it is a good policy? And you have, in this case, half an hour, but hopefully you will have 2 days if you are working for them, okay, in a lucky day. So what would you do? And literally you have half an hour, so what would you do? I will go walking around. And you need to tell me, what would you do? So yes, so they give you data for two hospitals. In one of them they have applied a new admissions procedure. They have data for satisfaction levels of consumers, and they tell you, well, could you actually tell me whether these new admissions procedures, okay, has a positive effect, a negative effect, or no effect at all in the level of satisfaction of consumers? It is a good policy, it is not a good policy, what do we do? What could you do? Do it. You do it. Yeah, you do it. All of them, they can do it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You have half an hour. I will go walking around. Yeah. I don't know. Of course, you can work in groups, okay? Alone, if you want to take one to the class, whatever you want. Yes, sorry, it says there, but just in case. So the new procedure is implemented in hospital 1 is April. Okay? Hospital 2 doesn't have implemented the new procedure at all. That's the comparison, that's your control. But it says the last one. Okay, so could you repeat the question? So you work in a hospital, hospital 1, okay. Well, actually, you could work for the NHS in general, and they tell you, listen, we are actually trying this new admissions procedure. We've just tried in one of the hospitals, okay, and we implemented this in this year since April. And we have data on the levels of satisfaction of patients who have attended that hospital during that period of time, after the procedure was implemented and before the procedure was implemented. We also have data for the levels of satisfaction of another hospital, which is Hospital 2 in your data set, in which this new admissions procedure was not implemented at all. And then the question is this a good new admissions procedure? Does it actually statistically significantly increase the level of satisfaction of patients? Should we keep it? Should we apply it to other hospitals? Or should we drop it altogether? Yeah? The first thing that you do is whoa. You don't quit your job. Whoa. Okay, so the first thing that you do, for example, is, okay, so you can, sorry that I cut your name. This could be good and bad. So, Lily, what did you do, the first thing that you do with the data? Okay, very good. So they did a graphical comparison. The first thing that they did is like, well, let's see if there is, first of all, a statistical motivation to analyze it. So let's see it graphically. So they saw graphically the effect of the procedure, which is the average patient score, across months. Okay? So basically what they did is something like this. So they draw from month 1 to 7, because if you realize in the data set you just have from January to July. And then they saw the level of satisfactions for hospital 1 and 2. Here you have the average level of satisfactions for hospital 1 in January. In February, March, so is the average level of satisfactions. Why? Because it's neater, the graph, okay? Otherwise you are going to have lots of lines. So let me explain first the graph and then show you how to do it, or you should be able to do this type of graph. So here, then, the first thing that group there, and maybe others I know they were also trying to do this graph, you see is that, well, it was implemented around April, okay, and you can actually see that since the implementation of the new procedure, there is a big jump of admissions procedure, of levels of satisfaction for hospital 1 compared to hospital 2, yeah? So actually here is already giving you some motivation to go further in the analysis. They say, well, actually, let's see if it is statistically significant when you control for other variables too, okay? Why? Because you can see graphically that satisfaction for hospital 1, which before was below, by the way, okay? But again, you are already controlling for pre-existing differences between hospital, increases. See that around here there is a peak increase for both hospitals. Still there is this gap, which could be due to the new admissions procedure. We don't know yet. This peak is going to be due to another thing, what we don't know about. Something was going on in the UK at that period of time that people were super happy with the hospitals, okay? Or in this particularly 2 hospitals. Now, how they probably went around about this, so they went to the data set, and 2 ways that you could do the average. First, you could calculate the average patient score per month just doing exactly average from F, which is where the patient score for hospital 1 for April, for January, for February, 1 by 1. Or there is a whole formula to calculate all the ifs that I didn't show you yet. By the way, there are thousands of formulas in Excel. If you have a question about one that you don't remember, Google exists, okay? So you can actually Google the formula if you want. I don't remember all of them by heart. Sometimes I also have to. So if you actually go here, which I have the table, I will upload all this data, don't worry. you have the table, then you can actually say, well, can you calculate the average of the patient scores, which is in the F column, yeah? If the hospitals, which is in the A column, is equal to 1, and if the month is January, and you just select a column where is row where is January, okay? So you can actually do the whole equation and then calculate per month and per hospital. And then the only thing that you have to do is to draw the graph with month in the horizontal axis and patient score for hospital 1 and then for hospital 2 in the vertical axis. And you have this graph over here, which I'm not doing in front of you on purpose. So it's not like I don't want to do it, because I want you to try to do it. Okay. So we see this. And then we say, okay, then let's move forward with our econometric analysis, because actually this is the idea that you have to sell. I mean, this is really good. But what about if there was something else going on in April and for hospital 1 and this is why it increased and it's nothing related to the new hospital procedure, sorry, to the new procedure, okay? What about that? Okay, so, okay, sorry. Okay, so what did you do then? David, do you want to tell us what did you think about?
I divided the month and if the hospital is using the new procedures. So dummy variable 1 if the procedure is new and another dummy variable 1 if it's new.
Yeah, okay, so something that he thought about is like, okay, well, he's going to try to identify a model to explain whether the patient satisfaction has increased due to the new procedure. And went to the data set and realized that the new procedure was implemented from April, right? Here you had a similar idea, also with the dummy variables, yeah? Okay, so let's create that dummy variable, that time dummy variable, okay, which identifies from which month is the hospital procedure implemented. It's a little bit an idea of like when we were thinking about the seasonal effects with the time series, okay? But in this case, it's with policy application. So David then created a dummy variable, which is 1 if the period of time is April or from April, so April, May, June, and July, and 0 otherwise. Yes, so 0 for the rest of the months. Okay, good. Another thing here that he also did, but he didn't say, is that he realized that there are 2 different hospitals, right? So he had a hospital dummy variable too. So in this case, where is the new procedure applied in hospital 1, right? So this is your treated variable. This is where your treatment, where the new procedure is applied. And you have data for another hospital, but this is like a control. This is just something to compare with. So there was a second dummy variable, which is 1 if the hospital was 1 and 0 otherwise. Right? So see, now we are going to have these 2 dummy variables, the one controlling for time, so from when the procedure is applied, comes into place, and the other one controlling from which hospital the procedure is applied in, which is hospital 1. In reality, what we want to look, okay, so you have to control for all of these things because you have to control for time and in which hospital, but in reality what you want to look at is whether being in hospital 1 from April has a statistically significant effect on the level of satisfaction of patients. So what you want to do is that combination, okay, that interaction between the 2 dummy variables that we just created. So that difference in difference variable. So being a patient in hospital 1 from April, you know, has statistically significantly increased the level of satisfaction. So what you are doing is this model here. That's what you were doing. So you have at the level of satisfaction of one patient, any of you, yeah? In hospital 1 or 2, in a given month, will be equal to a constant plus this treated variable, which is equal to 1 if the hospital is 1, 0 otherwise, plus this time variable, which is what we call policy, which is equal to 1 from April and after. I will upload the slides, don't panic, okay? I will, no, it's just because if I gave you this, what you have to work, what was the point, yeah? Okay, and then this difference in difference, which is the treated plus the policy. So it will be 1 if the hospital is hospital number 1, and it's the time from April onwards, okay? So you are actually interested in knowing whether that coefficient B3 has a statistically significant effect, positive or negative, on the level of satisfaction of consumers. Now, someone else in this group here, but I didn't catch your names, but it was very good, also told me like, oh, should I count for the frequency visit, right, of patients? Well, but yes, like, you know, like how frequent a patient visits could be also relevant. So you could count for not extra variables. You could count here, we don't know where hospital 1 and hospital 2 are. We don't know if both of them are in Manchester. We don't know if one is in Manchester and one is in Liverpool or other places or in a completely different country, okay? So that, if we had information for that, that would be also interesting to put, okay? So there are different things that we could account for. Okay, so again, I'm not doing this in Excel right now on purpose, okay? If you run this model, this is what you have. I wanted to do it, by the way. No, it's not like. Right, so you see that the p-value, first of all, is the difference in difference variable, which is our variable of interest statistically significant. This is 50%, you are going to get it right. Yes or no? Is the difference in difference variable statistically significant? Yes. Okay. Is statistically significant, by the way, strongly statistically significant at 1% level, if you remember the 1%, 5%, and 10% levels. It is positive? Yes. So actually, it statistically significantly increases the level of satisfaction of consumers, this new procedure. Here I'm not controlling for other variables, which you could do, but if you tell me this, you can tell me, no, actually keep it and implement it to other hospitals because it's good, okay? So that's what you are telling me. Right. You could introduce also visit frequency as an additional variable just because you have it in the data set. And if you take visit frequency numerical, then if you convert it to numerical, if you don't have it in your data set, then you can see that the difference in difference is still statistically significant. Another thing that you could do is to introduce maybe more time variations, okay? Or to see whether that increase that we were observing about May is due to another different policy. You know that it was applied, something was going on in the country that period of time. You could control for the economic environment, you could control for many things which are not available in your data set, okay? Okay, so questions about this before I proceed? Now we are going to do something with this, because I already told you what more or less what you should do, okay, or more or less. So this is a little bit the line of thinking that you will have to do, that I was expecting from the workshops, and also that you will have to do from the reports. It doesn't matter if you came up with this or not now, okay? I mean, if you did it perfectly, then what's the point of being here? No, but like, you know, it doesn't matter about that. There is a learning process, right? The whole idea is like you understand afterwards. So, okay. And by the end of the year, that you are okay with it. So, I didn't do it in Excel, neither the graph or this, just showing you the results, because I want you to do it. You have a whole reading week for doing it, okay? So I'll leave it like that, and then at the end of the reading week, I will upload a video of me doing it in Excel, okay? But try to do it before. I mean, it's up to you, but if then you just watch the video, in reality, you're not going to learn it, okay? That much. Right, so remember that I don't see you in 3 weeks, because remember that on the 10th of November, which is the week commencing on the 6th, okay, you have the first assessed online exercise. Remember that you will have a data set available 48 hours before, you will have some guidelines to do with the data set, Okay? And then you will have an online test related to the work that you have done in the data set. I'm not just going to ask you what is the number in cell A3, okay? I'm going to ask you about the interpretation of that too, even if it is not in your guidelines, okay? You will have a mock test next week, which would be last year's assessment. The tutors and I will have some office hours next week. I will send you an email about that. And then you can ask us questions about the mock test, but during the 3 days that the assessed online exercise is running, we will not be replying to any emails. So any questions you have about the module before the assessed online exercise, okay? Okay. Then I'll see you in 3 weeks. Bye. Well, you can ask me anyway.
It's the question about the one we just did. So, if it's still alive, because like I have the question is the two dummy variables. Which ones did you create? I created one that says if new equals 1.
The same than the everything, because that it was new. It was from April onwards.
Yeah, I think because like when I tried to find test statistics, or sorry, the registers, it didn't come out with the same values up there. It came with some different values.
That could be because of another issue with the dummy. 1 second.
Hopefully I haven't lost it just now.
I will go asking while you...
Yeah.
So you will know how you do. Okay, wow.
What?
Yeah. Before the final one? No. Before the assessed online exercise 1? Yes. We have already set available 48 hours before. Yeah, so you have 48 hours to work out with the data set and then the assess online exercise. No, we have a guideline on yeah, like in these 5 weeks. Yeah. You'll get an idea when the mock is out. Next week, probably Monday, I will make an announcement and send it by email. So, the mock exam will be last year's exam. So you will see what they did last year.
The first hour, you had
So,
yeah, sorry, I lost my charger from my so I may as well leave in a couple of minutes.
okay, so tell me.
So we put the range for Y. So for the Y range, it's just the patient satisfaction, or do you have to find average per month?
You need to say that you are selecting labels
Yeah.
because you were selecting, otherwise it counts as sub-zero.
I'm redoing one, so and then for the regression, you choose all of these ones. So these are the stats I got. And they're not the same.
What's not the same?
The data's the data I got here is not, and the value I got is not the same as the one I was on.
This one is exactly the same. It was 0.76.
It was just the other ones that were the same one.
Yeah, okay, let me see that. Maybe add something about the specification of your variables. So this is correct.
If it's greater than, so it's from 8 point onward.
Yeah.
If anything that's greater than 3, being the
Yeah, no, that's correct.
And then the third one was the multiples of these two put together.
But it was not the same that the one that I saw with the frequency of visit or the one that I saw with just that two variables. Because with the frequency of visit, it makes sense that it's not the same because I had more variables included.
Oh, I see.
But I think it's the same that the first one that I saw.
If I do the fourth variable, do I need to multiply it for this as well?
No.
So it's completely
So
separate.
it's just like I came up with a way of accounting for this numerical.
So let's say you have 3 variables, and then when trying to find the difference of difference, is it all the dummy variables multiplied together?
Exactly. The treated and the policy variable multiplied
So
together.
let's say if I found the frequency visit and put it in,
Yeah.
and
You don't
and
have to
also
multiply.
I don't have to. Is there any reason why I don't need to do that?
I mean, you could think about the reason to do that. You could think like whether people visited more from April since the new procedure, right? But then you are actually telling me that coefficient is explaining to me something different
Oh, I
to that
see.
one. Yeah?
Right, so the difference is just for the main.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah.
I'm still one person short. Just one. Yeah, we can't get in touch with him or her.
Okay, so what we would do
It's
is
44.
yeah. Okay, so what we would do
44.
44. Don't worry, I mean I can find that. I will send this person an email. If this person doesn't reply within, let's give him, I don't know, like until Tuesday, you know, just because the weekend, then I will contact their tutors, okay, and then try to see if they can approach that person during tutorial. So I know that's in 2 weeks, but you know. And then if that doesn't work anyway, you know that after submission, I would ask you to submit a questionnaire in which you will tell me your contribution ratios. So then you will tell me all of us work 1%, so sorry, 100%, so you will get the submission mark. This person didn't come at all, didn't participate at all. It will get a 0. That's it. Okay, that's the control. Or just did 20%. And you could agree on that. Now make sure that then you tell me additional comments, okay? Make sure that then you tell me additional comments, right, on why you are giving that person a 0. Because otherwise, you know, I know it's not because you don't like people who wear like t-shirts. It doesn't make sense. It's just because that person didn't come.
We should still email you.
Yeah. So.
He doesn't want this test because in his last years, and I know that the curriculum changed. He said something about the assessment would change.
It's the report that changed.
Oh, okay.
So they didn't have a report, they have another exercise.
Oh, right. Okay. So the mock exam will still be like an accurate
It will be an accurate representation, especially this first term. Yeah. So no, don't worry about it. And if there is anything different, then I will change it and I will tell you this question was different. Yeah.
And you know, sorry, this question. I think in the tutorial one, you know how it asked, I think one of the questions was give like an economic kind of approach to answer this question. And does that require like research and sources and stuff like that? Or will we
I mean, there was
one question?
okay. You will have a discussion question for the final exam. Okay. In your report, you have time to research about things if you think it's relevant.
Yeah, okay.
For the final exam,
That's the final.
you will see examples of discussion. You don't have a discussion question here. You will see examples of discussion questions. Usually you have 1 hour for the final exam. I know you can research in 1 hour everything. So that will be more on your knowledge than during the module. Okay? If this was actually a project for a job that you can just expect to research on that. If it is for the tutorial, then a little bit, yes, the tutor will have expected you to look at the performance and have an idea of things.
Thank you.
Otherwise, how do you